Welcome to Self-Led Love with me, your host, Bahia Miller. Together, using the powerful framework of internal family systems, we will take on the spiritual and oh-so-human curriculum of becoming radically responsible for our parts and how they show up and grow up in intimate partnership. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome back, everyone, to Self-Led Love. This week, I am so excited to bring you fellow IFS practitioner and parent coach, Lisa Weiner. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So glad to be here with you.
Yes.
This is fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to read your bio just to kind of anchor us in so that our audience knows who you are. Here we are, and it's Lisa Weiner is a nurse practitioner, faculty member at the Neufeld Institute, NI certified parent consultant, and a level 3 IFS practitioner. Using her mastery of the relational development approach articulated by Dr. Gordon Neufeld, Lisa supports parents in deeply understanding attachment and the conditions conducive to the unfolding of emotional health and maturity in their children and teenagers. When parents have parts of them that get in the way of them being able to provide what their children need, Lisa skillfully weaves IFS into her sessions so that parents can befriend these parts, get to know why they do what they do, and ultimately release any burdens that are blocking their access to inherent open-hearted, self-led parenting. In addition to parent consulting, Lisa is a much-loved teacher of the Neufeld Institute classes, where she teaches to an international audience with her down-to-earth blend of humor, story, and ability to make complex and nuanced theory accessible and inspiring. Lisa is also a writer, editor, and speaker. Lovely. Yay.
Wow.
Yes.
My website.
I did. I stole it from your website.
Where? Where's that from? She sounds all right. Yeah.
Yes. Your proud professional
Funny.
part wrote that bio.
Yeah. And my part that's here is like, I don't remember. I mean, I remember writing a lot of it, but some of the turns of phrase, I was like, cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you for being here. So many of the clients that I am fortunate to support are parents of young children, right? Recalibrating their relationships after the early years of parenting.
Yeah.
And some of them have older children and some don't have any children. Some want to have children. I just feel like this is going to be a really important conversation because when you add children to the mix, things in relationship, yeah.
Yeah, they really, really do. And also I find that all the understandings we bring around parenting and child development obviously apply to our inner system too, right? Like whether or not you have literal kids outside of your body, we all have lots of kids inside of us. So this applies the same internally as well as externally. So it's useful for everybody to understand more about kids and their needs and what good parenting looks like and how to support, yeah.
Yes, yes. You hear that term so often, like we're reparenting ourselves while we're parenting our kids, right? And I think that's
Mhm.
kind of what you're speaking to and
Yeah.
how to do that, like consciously do that. I'm so curious how you're guiding people to do that. And I'm curious about what the Neufeld Institute is and how that relates to IFS. And do you want to just bring us into your world a little bit, like to give us your story of how you came to all of this and how you carry it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. So, okay. So I have two sons who are just like the lights of my life. They're amazing. Ezra's 21 and Ruben is 18. Um, Before they were born, I was a nurse practitioner. I mean, well, still am, but I was practicing in a busy OBGYN clinic and I did women's health. And I loved it. And then when right before I gave birth to Ezra, I decided that I wanted to not be doing that, really busy, stressful job. I wanted to stay home if I could, and I was lucky enough to be able to do that. So I stopped working in that capacity. Did not even think about in those early years of motherhood, like maybe I should think about like keeping my license updated or like anything like that. Let it all just go. And then like 10 years in, when I was like, oh, maybe I'd like to work a few days a week as a nurse practitioner, found out like basically I needed to go back to grad school. Like I had just,
Mhm.
I say it was a really interesting and expensive 5-year career.
Uh-huh.
So that was that. And that was okay because my passion was really starting to be in understanding child development and what was going on in my boy. And by this time, I had my second son, and I just loved being a mom. I felt like my whole system felt like this is like the role of my lifetime. I just love it. There was this older man. We have this beautiful park near us, and I used to, in the mornings, walk Ezra and our dog in the park, and I would see him and he would say, "You just look like the, like, happiest mom I've ever seen." And it wasn't that I was, like, happy every day, I was exhausted and, all the things, but there was something about, being a mom to my particular sons that just felt and continues to feel like such an honor and such a gift and so, like, just so beautiful to me.
Hmm.
So I was like, I want to do something in this realm. And my kids went to Waldorf school all the way through. And at that time, the book Simplicity Parenting, I don't know if you're familiar with it, was like the book that everyone was reading. And my kids had this amazing, amazing early childhood teacher. And she, when parents in the preschool class were like, come talk to her about concerns, one of them came to me and told me that she said, "Go talk to Lisa. Like, her parenting instincts are really good." And so that felt I felt like I'd been, like, bestowed this blessing by this woman who I admired that, like, "Okay, this is now gonna be my path. This is what
Mhm.
I'm gonna learn how to do."
Hmm.
So the first, like, easiest step seemed like I was gonna train to lead simplicity parenting groups. They were offering trainings for that, so I did that. And I started leading classes in that in the Portland area. This is when we did everything in person and live.
Yes.
And that was great. I loved it and just felt like, oh, this is my jam. This is really great. And then they offered an advanced training a few years later. And in that training, we read Hold On to Your Kids, which is the book by Gordon Neufeld
Mm.
and Gabor Mate. The book is Gordon's work, and Gabor had the entree as a writer, and he was a client of Gordon's actually, and he was like, "You need to write this, and let's do it." So we read that book, and I was like, I jumped ship. I was like, I need to go find this guy because
Mhm.
like he is really. It went so much deeper than the simplicity parenting stuff. So I just Googled him and online I found the Neufeld Institute. It's, they offer, I say they because I wasn't a part of it yet. Now I would say we, but they offer all these classes online. And I just dove in and started taking a bunch of classes. They're amazing. I was like, why is Gordon Neufeld not like known,
Mm.
so known, and it turns out that Gordon is so brilliant and so amazing and so has so much integrity that, like, the whole marketing, like, self-promotion world is just he is not that's not a game that he wants to play, and so people who find him are, like, just all in, and
Mm.
it's like your blessing if you stumble upon him. So I started diving and taking classes, whatever, and then they had this facilitator training program where you could do a 2-year training program. It was really hard to get into, huge application, but then you could teach his classes. You could bring his classes. So I was like, I want to do that. I applied. I was so happy I got in. I did that. Then at the end of that, my like advisor for that program was like, "Hey, Gordon would like to extend an invitation to you to do a faculty internship with him." So that was like it felt like I, won an Academy Award, like, so I couldn't have been more, like, honored, and so then I got to do 2 years of, like, one-on-one study with him,
Mm.
which was so, so great. Like, I could ask him all my questions and really, really integrate the approach and apply it to my life and, know it from the inside out, really, like how it applied to my kids and me and my parents and, everything. And so that was maybe 8 years ago that I did that. And so I've been on faculty since. So I teach classes and go to conferences. And then I also certified through the institute as a parent consultant. And so that's what I do every day is I meet with parents and I support them in their parenting. And so then a few years ago, I was like, I found IFS. I found it through personally through my own therapy and started training and really liked it and was like, oh, this is like, oh, there was a lot of overlap. Obviously, the language is different, like we call different things different,
Mhm.
Gordon calls them defenses, we call them protector, all of that. But
Mhm.
there was no conflict. There
Yeah.
was no there was no conflict. And I found it really, really helpful to weave that in when parents, because a lot of what I do is help parents to see their kids through the lens of child development and compassion.
Mm.
And that can soften a lot and see what's needed.
Mhm.
But a lot of times parents would see that and understand that and say, I get all that, Lisa, but I can't stop yelling.
Mhm. Right. Right. The part of them that
So,
yells. Yeah.
yeah. So then it was like, okay, now I had this other way to support that, to be like, okay, let's be with that part of you
Yeah.
that yells and see what that's trying to do.
I love it. That's so
Uh-huh.
awesome to have this complementary, and such deep alignment in your path for what you just love to do. And then it sounds like the universe just kind of kept opening the doors and said, yes, come deeper, support
Yeah.
others
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So now I use both and yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
great.
right. So where do we want to go from here? I have some specific kind of curiosities of my
Mhm.
own that I would love for us to get to. I know that there's toddler and teenager, those are two big developmental zones. What do we need to understand about development, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a huge
So
question.
it's a really good question too. It is big, but so in the smallest little nutshell, I feel like maybe a lot of your listeners are familiar with IFS.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't need to explain that as much, but the Neufeld paradigm, or what's often called the Neufeld relational developmental approach, is not as well known as I said. Um, and at its core is understanding that nature has a plan for the unfolding of human development, that it's not something that we need to manipulate or make happen. And in this way, you'll see the orientation is very similar to IFS. It's like a constraint removing approach
Mm.
that we want to not get in the way of the unfolding of our child's potential.
Mm.
And there's lots of ways that we as parents and teachers and society can get in the way. One way is not understanding what's appropriate developmentally
Mm.
and asking for something that's not developmentally appropriate or disapproving because of developmentally appropriate behavior. All of those can get in the way. So, what we want to do is we want to support, we want to work as partners with nature. We want to midwife the unfolding of our child's potential.
Mhm.
So, at the heart of what allows things to unfold is attachment.
Mm.
Attachment is what needs to be there to allow things to move and to allow a child to feel. Feelings are the engine of maturation. And so, attachment is what makes it safe to feel. Being in a dependent, we need to invite our kids to depend on us, to lean on us. And dependence is such a tricky concept these days because there's so much effort being put into pushing independence. But really, again, independence is a fruit of development. It will happen if we can invite really generously our kids to rest in our care
Mm.
and lean into us. So, yeah, I would say some of the foundational principles of the Neufeld approach are to be in right relationship, which is inviting our children to unconditionally exist in our presence. So, relationship is the bottom line, behavior is never the bottom line, and to allow them to depend on us. And if we can do that, there's a lot of nuancing to all of that. It's easier said than done, especially with sensitive kids or kids who've, experienced difficult beginnings, but it's always possible. It's a very, very hopeful approach. It's never too late. It's always possible to unlock unfolding potential in development, even if it's at age 60.
Mm.
It's always there. We're unfolding and growing and developing ideally until the day we die. Um, yeah, so it's a lifelong path, and
Yeah. I feel like IFS, right, is so much about that attachment with ourselves, right, as grown-ups. And that attachment style, I guess, that blueprint, I imagine, comes from how our parents are attaching to us and our peers and like all those different attachment experiences. Is that kind of,
yeah,
or is it more
totally.
complicated than that? Am I being reductive here?
Um, you know, I'm not a huge fan actually of the whole attachment style
Tell me.
framework
Yeah.
because I feel like that is attachment is something that is very, very relationally specific. And so yes, of course, if our early relationships or our main one could be characterized by this label that is so popular now, which attachment style are you and
Anxious,
whatever.
yes,
Yeah.
avoidant.
Yeah, yeah. But that says nothing about yeah, there's a part that in that relationship, learned how to, you know, get what they needed in a certain way. But we are all capable of deep and healthy attachment. And so I feel like the label can it almost is like a half truth, like it gets something right for sure. It gets something right about, some parts and some early relationships, but it can become like an identification, an excuse sometimes, "That's who I am," and, I feel like sometimes it blocks curiosity and it blocks also the understanding that we don't have a blueprint for attachment. We have a blueprint for healthy unfolding, and we can attach in so many different ways depending on either the invitation that is being extended to us by another person or the invitation that we are extending to, you know, our child or someone who we want to rest in our care. So I think it can be I think it can be constraining. If, you know, if people find that helpful to explain certain things, then that's great. I see attachment as just like a much bigger thing than one style per
Yeah.
person.
Well, I appreciate that because whenever I hear anxious, avoidant, secure, whatever attachment, I'm always like, oh, well, I'm just in the disorganized category, which, right, because I have all different parts that have different attachment styles and there's so much nuance to it. But then calling
Absolutely.
myself disorganized, I'm like, oh, great. Now I'm that messed up. It's just like it can be helpful as like a learning, awareness piece, I think is kind of what you're saying, but also it's not so simple.
It's not so
It's not
simple.
so simple.
And
Okay.
it can block a lot of, it's like seeing something I feel like through like a little, like looking through like a paper towel,
Yeah.
tube and seeing the world in that way rather than, um, just looking in binocular vision and seeing a lot of nuance.
Yeah. And then I'll just, this piece around attachment, like as a parent, right? I have a 4-year-old son. And, in the things that I've read and the methodologies I've been curious about and tried on, right? I can see like there's gentle parenting, and then there's a critique that you can be too gentle of a
Mhm.
parent and like permissive and right, like giving your power to the child and not holding structure. And then there's more like old school style parenting, these are the rules. And where do you sit in the spectrum of,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a really good question. So, yeah, trying to think how best to answer it. Where I sit personally, or the kind of parent that, I am personally, and the kind of parenting that we see as what kids need at the Neufeld Institute, I strive for those to be aligned. Um, you know,
Hmm.
practice what I preach. Of course, have my have my shortcomings for sure.
Well, you're a human.
I am.
Oh, me too.
Some of my parts don't like that
Right.
actual fact, but yeah. Um, I have a lot of perfectionist parts, especially around parenting, because so important to me.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, at the Neufeld Institute, in the Neufeld approach, we are very much about relationship is the bottom line,
Yeah.
and behavior is never the bottom line. And when there is bad behavior, we bridge it, meaning we face into connection. We don't send a child away. We don't say, I can't be with you if you're like that. We don't, because we understand that misbehavior, whatever, is always because the child either is unable to do what we want in that moment or is unwilling to do what we want in that moment. Those are the two reasons.
Mm.
And if they are unable, because they're developmentally, we're asking something that is not developmentally available to them.
Hmm.
We're asking them to do something that their brain is not yet ready to do, which
Hmm.
we do a lot with kids. So it's really important to understand what is developmentally appropriate and what is not.
Mm.
We apply adult standards to kids all the time. And I always say it's like if you were like disapproving of me because I couldn't fly. Like, like
Yeah.
I can't, you know? And what am I supposed to do with that, So they either can't or they don't want to because of many reasons. And relationship, extending warmth and an invitation to be in relationship with us, no matter what is going on, is what is going to, over time, address both of those reasons. So the relationship is what creates the rest that needs to happen for maturity to happen. So the kid actually will be able to do the thing. It supports brain development. So we're playing the long game. So we're not saying, oh, do whatever you want. We're saying, I want to support you in growing towards, a civilized, considerate, whatever being. We're not saying I'm okay with you hitting your brother for the rest of your life, but we're looking at what will best support getting there. And that is relationship because that supports maturity. Or for the unwilling portion,
Mm.
kids want to be good for people who they feel like them, who they feel have a good, view of them, who love them. So it will also take care of us being able to have the role, the position in our kids' life that mostly, not always, they're going to want to do what we say. So relationship addresses both fronts of bad behavior. Bad behavior. So it's not gentle parenting in the way that it's often presented, which is everything goes, do whatever you want, you're in charge. Not at all.
Mhm.
We very much believe kids need to the adults need to lead.
Mhm.
The kids need to be in the dependent role because
Mhm.
the brain can't rest if it's in charge. So they need to be looking to us for their cues, for their comfort, for everything like that. And it is not harsh or authoritarian parenting because that ruptures attachment. And we know that attachment is the key that it unlocks it all. So it's a middle road. What it would look like your question, like, what does it look like?
Yeah.
So it would look like saying, do you want to give me an example
Well,
from your life?
thank you for because I actually have a part that's
Yeah.
bubbling inside of
Yeah.
me
Yeah. Yeah.
right
Let's
now.
hear.
Right, as you're saying, like, this unwillingness piece, I'm thinking of my 4-year-old, and I'm like, "Can you go put your shoes on?" And
Yeah.
he's like, "I'm gonna go get my truck." And I'm like, can you please put your shoes" and I'm like, "Okay." She's saying what I'm hearing you say is that if my kid likes me and respects me and feels connected to me, he's gonna put his shoes on, but that is not what's happening,
Yeah.
Lisa.
Yeah. 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 Okay, let's nuance this a little more. And this is what's always hard in these like short conversations
Yeah.
because you know, the theory's complex and beautiful and is very congruent, but it's big. So, okay, toddlers and teenagers are very similar in a lot of ways, and a big characteristic is both of them is a instinct called counterwill. And counterwill, and I explain this to adults all the time, and I've never yet here, maybe you'll be the first, like most highly evolved person I've explained this to. But everyone can identify this. So when you're at a stoplight and you're at the front of the line and you don't notice that it turns green and the person behind you honks for
Mhm.
you to go,
Mhm.
that impulse inside you that maybe you don't align with, but like I said, I've yet to meet someone who doesn't know what I mean, that wants to like not go or go slowly or take our own sweet time, that is counterwill.
Right.
And it is the instinct that we resist when we feel coerced.
Yeah, my husband
It's
says, "You should
inbred.
exercise," and I say, "No."
Yeah. 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 My dog, and all mammals have it. My dog has huge counterwill. He follows me around all day, like under my feet. But at night, when I want him to come get in his bed, so I'm actually calling him to
Right.
do the thing that he wants to do all day long, but now it's my agenda.
Yeah.
He will not come.
Yeah.
He will not come.
Yeah.
So we when the coercion feels bigger than the self-generated will to do something, we don't want to do it. So that's the counter will instinct.
Yes.
It's there in all of us. Like we said, development is beautiful. There's no mistakes in human design. It's there for two reasons. The first is that it protects us against outside influence. So attachment often when it's activated, and that's another thing. Like you say, like, does this mean your son's not attached to you? No, not at all. It could mean in that moment he's more his attachment energy is going more towards his play than towards you. It doesn't mean globally he's not attached to you. But activated attachment energy helps counter will lie down. So if my husband walks in the door and I say, take out the garbage, he's probably going to have counter will if I haven't seen him all day. But if we've said, hi, and we've had a warm greeting and we're chit chatting, and I say, oh, remember tonight's garbage night, it will go down a lot easier.
Mhm.
So counterwill is meant to, and it protects kids from outside influence. So it's like, I remember very clearly being at the grocery store with my kids when we were little, and I would see someone I knew and I would be talking to them, and my kids would be watching me. And when they'd leave, they'd say, do we like her? Mama, is she nice? Is she? And it was like, you're our person. Give us our cues.
Mm.
So what I say was going to go in. So when we went to check out and the woman gave him a sticker and said, say thank you, my son got counterwill. He didn't want to say thank you because he doesn't know this cashier at the grocery store.
Mhm.
So then I would say before, because this would happen every time and it would be a thing, I would say, listen, sweetheart, she's going to give you a sticker. And when someone gives you something, you say thank you.
Mhm.
No problem,
Mhm.
because it was coming from the right person.
Mm.
So counterwill is there to resist outside influence, and it's
Mhm.
also there to protect emerging selfhood.
Mm.
And toddlerhood and adolescence are huge times of emerging selfhood.
Mm.
And so when his energy is going into exploring who he is, exploring his world,
Mm.
counterwill protects it. I say it's like noise canceling headphones.
Mm.
It's like, Mama, I'm under construction right now.
Mm.
I am building myself. Don't tell me what to do. So you're running into counterwill.
Wow.
So ways to deal with that are to warm up the relationship before we issue instructions,
Mhm.
to make the shoes a time of connection, a time of play, a
Mhm.
time of a game.
Mhm.
We often think, again, because as adults, we can tell each other what to do and we have longer attachment memories. But for kids, their attachment memories are very short. If he's engaged in what he's engaged with, us just tossing out from the other room what we want them to do is going to evoke counterwill.
Right.
But if we come in and we play for a few minutes with the truck, and maybe we drive the truck over and the truck wants to watch you put on your shoes, we're in their world and counter will lie down.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah, this is making thank you. This it's really like helpful just to understand like where his attachment, like that his attachment or his orientation could be towards his own expression and curiosity
That's right.
versus right. And this almost I feel like somebody said this to me once and I want to talk about screens because I have a lot of curiosity around screens and these
Yeah.
but somebody told me once, like, when they're watching something, sit down beside them, get involved in what it is that they're doing first, and then, we're gonna turn it off.
Great advice. Great advice. Because where their eyes are going, where their attachment energy is going, that's their attachment energy. So if we barge in, because
Mhm.
we assume like we love them all the time, we don't really need that same kind of like warming up. And
Mhm.
adult brains are capable of multiple attachments at the same time, and 4-year-old brains are not. So whatever he's engaged with, that's his thing.
Right.
And we forget that because we do, and then we're coming in and we're being perceived as like, a competing thing.
Mhm.
No.
Mhm.
But if we can join and connect, I think of it sometimes as like the cord on your laptop, the green light. Like if we had a green light on our kid's forehead, okay, are we good? Are we synced up?
Mm,
Now your son is gonna be much more receptive and open to what you're asking him to do.
okay. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and like you said, like, really kids toggle between attachment, emergence, attachment, emergence. When they're filled up,
Mhm.
they go play, they discover their world, then they need a refill,
Mhm.
and if we're barging in on their emergent time, we're gonna get like, "No."
That's really helpful just to recognize and have some reverence for their emergence time. I love that, and I'm gonna take that, and I'm grateful for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And yeah, so maybe pivoting a little bit, I mean, to this piece around screens. And
Mhm.
I'm curious, like, right, we got screens now, we got video games, we got AI now. I just watched this
Oh, yeah.
documentary that totally freaked me out about the future of our world, right? I have some parts.
What was it?
Well, it was a movie. It was actually about social media, but it talked about AI too. It was a new documentary a friend of mine is just put out. It's called Your Attention Please.
Wow.
And I think there's another one that's out there that just came out about AI. I haven't watched it yet because I had nightmares about AI after I watched the
One
last
is
one.
enough. Yeah.
But
So
okay,
crazy.
so
Yeah.
screens, and then like I also kind of want to talk about when parents have different approaches to something like or sugar or,
Mhm.
listening or whatever. Like how
Yeah,
can cuz when working with couples, we have different parenting styles
yeah.
how to negotiate and like respect each other maybe as a different way with our kid, but how can we yeah. And I see parents getting triggered by the way each other is parenting a lot,
Totally. Yeah.
right? And so there's the relational issue. And then I also want to talk about screens, just like because I have my own curiosity around like, what do I want to be thinking about? I know there's probably no right answer. There probably are optimal answers, but like yeah, how to be making that decision for ourselves as parents about what's right for
Mhm.
us and our kid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
screens, parenting.
Okay, here's what we wanna be thinking about.
Are there guidelines? Like, what does Newfield say about screens? Are screens I don't know. Are they what are here, let me check in. What are my parts around screens? I'm scared as a parent because I'm like, we let our son do an hour a day. And I'm like, I don't know. Is that too much? I know people who do 45 minutes a week. I know people who do 0 screens. I know people who do more screens. And, my son is always asking for the screen. And that's
Yeah,
what scares me.
yeah,
Right? Because
yeah,
I'm like, "Oh, his first instinct is to go to this screen instead of to go to find his magnetiles and to go," So that has created a scared part in me. I also don't
yeah,
wanna be restrictive and create this energy around it where it's
that's
like
right.
this bad thing,
Right.
and I am trying to curate, like, the superhero when he watches superhero stuff, then all of a sudden he, like, gets wants to fight, and I have a part that's like, "No, no, I don't wanna do the good guy, bad guy fight thing," right? So those might be my parts. Maybe I'm getting in the way of his emergence, or maybe I'm actually like developmentally trying to curate,
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
a session
Thank
around
you
this. I think I need to
for
hire
naming
you.
all those parts. Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful awareness. Um, yeah, really like when we have a part that is alarmed as a parent, um, like you're right, like we don't want to be parenting from that place. Like nothing good ever happens. So we want that part to turn towards us so we can access more self energy in our parenting. And that part also may have something like quite important that it's picking up on, or it's not to say that, so of course it's nuanced. What we really want to keep in mind with screens and kids is that eh, where something is moving from the inside out, emotionally expressive play is so important. It's how things can move and how kids start to feel. We do a lot these days of like teaching about feelings in school, all sorts of social emotional learning programs. Kids can have a very cognitive sense of feelings and all that, but we for development to unfold the way it's meant to be, we need kids who actually can feel their feelings and have a soft heart and can be moved by their emotions. And the best way to do that is through play because things can come out in a safe way. And when screens for some kids come into the picture too much, they are so compelling to certain parts of a developing brain
Yeah.
that they can what feels like a need to a kid for that type of experience in the brain can become sort of so compelling, so sort of addictive, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
that it can get in the way of that more expressive kind of play.
Mhm.
So we just really want to be watching our specific kid. Some kids are totally fine. 1 hour of screen time a day, 90 minutes of screen time a day, and close it up and they're, off in the yard and they're playing. And for other kids, we see they're sort of living for that hour a day. And so much of the rest of the time is oriented towards, can I get a little more? Or when's that hour coming? Or whatever. And it's having a bigger impact than that hour.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that would be a time, again, in your good question before about like gentle or authoritarian, it is absolutely our job to make decisions that are in the best interest of the health and development of our child.
Mhm.
They can really not like that. That is not at all what I mean about attachment coming first, that we wouldn't do something that would make our child feel upset. Of course, we need to do that. That is our job. So if it becomes that we're seeing this is becoming an outsized thing in their world,
Mhm.
then it is absolutely responsible and important to say, you know what? We're not doing the iPad anymore. And we need to be there for the upset, right? That's the mistake also that some parents make who lean towards, say, a more authoritarian thing is I'm going to say the rule, I'm
Mhm.
going to lay down the law, but you're not allowed to be upset about it.
Mhm.
Right? So we're in this approach, we're saying it is absolutely my role to say, "No,
Mhm.
that's not okay."
Mhm.
And it is my role
Mhm.
to allow for any reactions to that.
Right.
An hour-long tantrum, crying, upset. Okay, yeah, you really didn't like that. I get it.
Right.
You wish mom had made a different choice. Totally get it. That totally makes sense. And I'm not changing my mind, because I know you can get through a no,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
I know you can get through it.
Yeah, and I imagine it's the parent's role also to help foster that expressive play or to help reorient, right, towards that way
Yeah,
of being.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, providing tools, providing outlets, not letting play get a kid in trouble. Like, I was very and, I'm not sure, but maybe I was sensing this part in you
Mm,
when, like, the good guy, bad guy thing, like, for a
mhm.
long time, I had parts who, feel very strongly about, gun violence and all that
Totally.
kind of stuff,
Totally.
and
Oh, yeah.
I did not want my kids to play with guns
Oh, yeah.
or anything like
It's
that, right?
already happening. Yes.
And yet, anyone's house that they would go over to who had, like, Nerf guns or something like that, they were like, could not tear them away.
Yeah. What do I do
And
about that?
okay, wanna hear what I did?
Yeah.
So, I was like, "No, no, 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 we don't do that, I don't endorse that,
Yeah.
guns are dangerous, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah." And, and yet, they'd be making guns out of sticks and they'd be, "Okay, you're not gonna buy me a Nerf gun? Well, this is a gun." And they'd be making slingshots and they'd be, doing all that. And then I learned about play, and there's a whole field of, like, play theory and play science and,
Mm.
this has been going on, this has been part of human wisdom for millennia. We had the Olympic Games because people needed to get out that aggression and competition. And I started to understand that we as humans are really, really capable of understanding what's play and what's not. And I
Mm.
wasn't giving, like, enough credit to that.
Hmm.
And that playing with aggression and violence and competition and all of that is a way for it to not be in reality as much. And if it's a thing that my parts are imposing this whole adult view of the world and politics and fears on, I'm, like, creating, like, more, like, energy and tension and taboo around it. I know you don't like where I'm going.
No,
I
it's
didn't like
good.
where I
It's
was going
good.
either.
I'm hearing you. This is like, I needed to hear this. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I learned all this, and a woman who is sort of a mentor of mine at the Neufeld Institute talked about how she would have her son's entire 6th grade class over at the end of the year. They lived on, like, several acres, and she would give them they would all have Nerf guns, and they would be running wild, like, on her land, and she said the girls would be, like, double fisting with guns, and at the end of the day, they were all just, like, clear and happy and soft-hearted. It wasn't doing what we feared it would, which was make them violent or something. It was just allowing human impulses to move using this form. And once I learned all that, I'm Jewish, so we celebrate Hanukkah, and, I found this kid on Craigslist, and then I was also like, all the plastic, like, environmentally, whatever.
Sure.
So I wanted to buy them used, and there was this kid on Craigslist who was, like, 17 who was like, "I'm done with my Nerf guns," and he was selling, like, an arsenal of, like, Nerf guns. And I went over to his house and I bought them, and I came in one night of Hanukkah with, like, these sacks of, like, Nerf guns, like, all the kinds and all that, and my kids were like, they didn't know what to do. Like, this was such a 180. They actually one of them started crying because they were so, like, I probably should have contextualized it more because they were just like, "Who are you?" "What do you," and I was like, "You know what, sweeties? I changed my mind. I changed my mind." And, like, we're allowed to do that as parents, right? Like, I changed my mind,
You're making me
and
cry. Yeah.
and we turned off all the lights in the house, and we had a full family, like, hide and seek, like, Nerf gun night, and it was like we were all like, my kids were, like, sweating and, like, we were creeping around corners, like, it was so fun, like, it was so fun for my parts and me, and it moved something, and did it change how they are in the world? Do they want an actual gun? Are they both? No. It's like I don't know, my parts were scared, and scared parts don't, have perspective and see the big picture. So, that's my story about guns.
I
Play
love
guns.
this story. You have just changed something inside of me, a part that was so scared. And I see how powerful that is to have these pieces reframed and really brought into reality by an experienced mother, by a professional in child development. Like, this is so powerful.
Yeah. And my boys are beautiful, tender-hearted, soft young men. Like, this did not like, I'm kind of like now, I'm like, of course this didn't change who they are. Like it just like was like fun play energy. And what's allowed in play doesn't need to take up that much room in real life because it has a place to run free. But if we're locking down on, especially in boys, this kind of like natural, I don't want to, I think girls have plenty of this too, but culturally, whatever, we're really concerned about boys and violence and aggression. And
Yeah.
it's in all of us. And it needs a place where it can come out that's not getting anyone in trouble
Mm,
and that's not being, told that they're a certain way or, all this stuff. Like it just needs to move. And when things can move, then they're discharged.
ugh, it's so good.
So go buy some Nerf guns.
I'm gonna go buy some more Nerf guns. Yes.
I can just send you a box of my old ones,
I
we're
mean,
done with them now. But, like, my kids, then I would hear, like, a group of 17-year-old boys in my basement, like, playing,
yeah, yeah,
and having so much fun.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so my parts are like, where should I be learning about like what is developmentally appropriate? And like, I mean, there's just so much wisdom that you have, and that is the gift of a practitioner who has spent so much time like deep diving an area, and you can get exactly what you need. I guess that's the benefit of hiring anyone one on one is the laser. Let me help you with this thing that you're struggling with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I have that. I don't know if there's a book that you recommend or
Yeah, well, I definitely recommend Hold On to Your Kids, which is
okay. Yes.
Gordon's
Yeah.
and Gabor's book,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yes.
Neufeld Institute are we .com or .org? We just got a new website. I think we're .org.
Okay.
Now. We have like 40 classes that we teach live, or you can take self-paced. There's free resources. Neufeld Institute has a YouTube channel with like tons of amazing things. There's nothing like Gordon's approach. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So highly, highly recommend checking that out if this piqued anyone's curiosity.
Yeah.
And if you have very specific concerns that you wanna nuance, then I do one-on-one sessions,
Yeah.
which are really, really fun.
Ugh.
I always say I'm sharing my eyes. Like, that's what I'm doing. Like, what we see influences what we do, right? So if we see gunplay as violent, then we're gonna react a certain way. But if we see it
Mhm.
as, you know, playful expression, we're gonna respond differently. So I share my eyes. You describe your kid to me, and I say, "This is what I'm seeing."
I love
You
that.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love how individualized it is based
Yeah.
on your kid. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm aware of time and I just want to like bring this back to
Mm,
couples for a moment before we close
mhm.
out. Like,
Yeah.
are there any words of wisdom, thoughts about like two parents parenting in different ways or, you know, yeah, there's so many different dynamics. I know I had mentioned to you about triangulation. I don't know if we want to get into that. That's like a whole other
That's a whole
relationship
other
kind
thing.
of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, right. Where
Yeah.
relationship issues are causing a focus more on the child than each other. But
Yeah.
yeah, like in partnership for a couple who are trying to figure out how to parent side by side. How can
Yeah.
we do
Yeah.
this?
It can be a few things. We're really, again, like, sort of culturally have this idea that, like, parents need to be, like, totally aligned, and that doesn't really allow for individuated people in a partnership. Like, of course, we're not gonna be, like, totally aligned, and do things the same way in terms of parenting, and that's okay. Kids are able to know what to it's kinda like the attachment style, right? It's like, there's room for different things to play out in different relationships with people, and that's okay. So, but more than being totally aligned, I feel like it is important, if possible, to be on the same page.
Hmm.
So to be sort of have the same approach and values around parenting. And that's where some psychoeducation, some developmental support, some classes, like an orientation being the same,
Mm.
can be really helpful. Yeah. And the room for, you're gonna do it your way and I'm gonna do it my way, and that's gonna be okay. We don't need to be the exact same person. The child has a gift of having lots of people in their life. And Each person has their gifts and their challenges, and that's okay.
Yeah. What about when one parent feels like their way is the correct way?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, things can definitely get complicated. That's often where I might step in and say, this is, if I agree, I'll say that, where we can bring in some developmental wisdom to say, if one parent thinks their way is the correct way and yelling or scaring a child is the way to get them to behave, I'm not going to be like neutral.
Right. Just parent that way. Right. No. Right.
I'm not going to do that. And that's where, oftentimes I also can be helpful because I'm an expert in child development and what is healthy and what is not. So I will explain. No, actually don't agree with that. And this is why.
Yeah.
And if you need help
Yeah.
because parts of you can't help that, I am all in with you.
Yeah.
But sometimes
Yeah.
I had this beautiful, again, when I was seeing people in person come in, this couple, and he was sort of like the stereotype of like an engineer, if I can use that like stereotype. He was very kind of like literal and really smart, a lot of smart parts, a lot of, and the mom just thought he was just being just way too kind of like harsh and having like too big of expectations for their young kids. And I explained, what kids need and what, whatever. And at the end of the session, he was like, Lisa, I just want to say everything you said is very internally congruent. Like, I like it. Like, it makes sense to me.
Hmm.
And then they enrolled in a class of mine. And after the first class, where I was describing how we need to keep our kids' hearts soft and how we do that through relationship, he came up to me and he said, that was really hard because it made me realize how many things I've been doing wrong.
Mm,
But I wanna thank you because now, like, I know better. And first of all, like, in that moment, my whole system loved this guy because I felt like that takes so much courage
mm,
to have the humility to say that.
mhm,
We can get so I mean, yeah, we have parts that just care so much that we can get so locked in and defensive, and he was really so open
mm,
to incorporating new information
mm,
when it made sense to him.
mhm,
And that's what also Gordon is super smart and has a lot of intellectual parts, so
mm,
people who want something that, like, has proof and makes sense, he can do that.
mhm,
And all the while, it's about having a soft heart and feeling your feelings, so it's really kind of both.
mm.
And, so that was beautiful. So again, like I said, I'm not going to say everything's okay, just follow what feels right to you. I'm going to say this is what kids need.
Yeah. I love this. And I think it's probably so valuable to have a third party be the one who's saying that because your partner can be like, you're doing this wrong. You're messing up our kid. And it's like, there's judgment, there's shame, there's defensiveness instead
Yeah,
of somebody who's, is an elder, right? You're like holding a space where we don't really have this built. Some people have friends with older kids,
yeah,
but everyone's busy. Like, how
yeah,
I hope people are talking to each
yeah.
other about these parenting struggles, but also, like, I just have so much, yeah, reverence for what you're holding down.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm aware that we were just talking about boy energy a bit, and I'm curious for the people who have girls because, right? If there are certain parental parts, right? Like the fear of boys and gun violence, the fear of boy aggression, like what are the fears parents might be carrying around girls?
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah,
there's any common
yeah.
threads you see.
Great question. And yes, what I see often in parents of girls is trying to think how to best say this. Kids need to rest in our care and they need to feel that they can be soft and following our lead. That's like really important for them to be in relationship with us in the dependent position. And a lot of kids these days, for many, many reasons, are not. They're in the lead. They're what we call alpha kids. And they're kind of like, they can appear very independent and kind of bossy and knowing their own mind and all of that. And all, there's many good qualities in that. But it's like growth happens at rest. And the alpha position, the lead position, is not a position of rest, it's a position of work.
Hmm.
And in the parent-child dynamic, parents should always be in the alpha position and kids should always be in the dependent position. And there's plenty of places for kids to exercise those muscles, but not in the parent-child relationship. And a lot of times these days, for really, really good reasons, people don't want their girls to get taken advantage of. They don't want their girls to get hurt. They will encourage these qualities to the degree that the girl is in the lead in the relationship, and therefore she's not and growth can't happen.
Mm,
And so we're sort of blinded by these, again, these cultural dynamics and the things that we want for our girls. We want them, of course, as adults
mm,
to know their mind and be in charge and be in the lead, but that's not for childhood and that's not for them at home. And so parents are sometimes blinded by this and inadvertently not creating conditions where girls can be soft and at rest at home,
mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a fear of softness, like a fear of too much, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Or if you have
a
a girl who,
passivity or yeah, go ahead.
yeah, who's crying a lot or who doesn't, to encourage almost more toughness
Mhm,
because of the culture we live in and because often those parts are needed and very important, and I'm not saying that they aren't. But in the parent-child relationship, when a girl is in the alpha role, we can be blinded to it and think it's great.
mhm,
Like I have many parents of girls who come to me and say, this is going to serve her really well, and it will.
mhm,
That's
mhm,
true.
mhm,
And she needs to have a place where she doesn't need to be like that.
mhm, mhm. Yeah,
And that can be in the womb of attachment, that
mhm,
she doesn't need to be like that.
yeah,
And often we can get blinded to seeing that because we're so relying on those qualities to keep her safe in the
right,
world as we see it.
yes. This is, like, stirring that and we'll wrap in just a moment, but, like, this is kind of stirring, like, what feels like a very early motherhood part of me of when me and all my early mom friends are, like, assessing a baby's development. Are they walking? Are they crawling? Are they, are they gonna
Yeah.
get the skills that they need and the fear, and they're all doing it at different times, and we're
Yeah.
comparing ourselves to the kids.
Yeah.
It's like, whew, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
That fear
Yeah.
of the developmental pieces kicking in, and what I'm hearing from you is just like a trusting in the process, trusting that rest and safety and the relationship are enough that those things will come online in their timing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now I've had enough mothering under my belt that sometimes I felt like I was going on faith here. I believe in this. This makes sense to me. This feels right. This feels true. This feels wise. And I'm in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to go with this. I'm going to go with the relationship. I'm going to go with trusting development. And I hope I'm right. And now I can say I've come through a lot of those times and I'm a believer.
Right. Yes. Yeah, and finding the thank you for that, and the balance of, like, finding the balance of that, and I'm just thinking I just had a conversation with my 4-year-old the other day about, like, stranger danger, and he is a people person. He will go up to anyone and be like, "Hi, how are you? What do you do?" He just, like, loves people, and I said, I asked him, like, "What are strangers?" And he said, "Those are people who help me." And I'm like, "Okay." But, like, so trusting their development and also being able to, like, put in the right safety guards, right? At the right
Yeah.
timing, in the right way, and the
Yeah.
perfectionism pieces of doing it right. Oh my god, we didn't even talk about the perfectionism, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that stranger danger we could have a whole conversation about that because I have parts who have thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I think I
Yeah.
need to hire you. If you loved this conversation and want Lisa to come back, please let me know because I would love to just, like, keep going and, yeah,
Yeah,
I
this
have
one's so fast.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is there anything else that you wanna make sure you say before we kind of wrap up here?
Well, we talked a lot about young kids,
Yeah,
which is awesome, which is what I do a lot, but I also have a specialty in adolescence.
yeah.
And so if there's parents of teenagers out there, we have a 10-week Making Sense of Adolescence class at the Institute that is so amazing. I highly recommend that. Or if you have specific questions about your teenager, that you want to talk about with me, I love talking about teenagers.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
so good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. I think that's about it for today. I like to ask people the two last questions. I don't know if you saw them on there. Like, one is about unblending. Is there any way that you try to help parents or help children? I don't even know. Like, do we try to help children unblend or we just let them be how? No, we're not trying. Yeah. I didn't think so. But as a parent, like, do you have any ways that you're helping people?
You know what? Actually, I'm gonna answer that question a little differently because you just said, "Do we help children unblend?" And I said, "No." But I'm having a thought, which is because I don't think of it as unblending, but it kind of is that there's a certain age at which kids develop the ability to have more than one thought or feeling at once, and that kind of changes a lot in terms of parenting and um, all of that. And again, we often try and do this before this capacity is online. It's often between 5 and 7, sometimes between 7 and 9 if the kid is sensitive. But how we can prime this is sort of a form of unblending
Mm,
or when this comes online is to sort of talk about, us having a multiplicity of inner experiences. And they're not able to do that until this function comes online. It's a prefrontal cortex function. But like for example, I would say, one of my kids would hit the other and then they would feel badly, right? But they weren't having all these experiences at the same time. They were sort of one after the other.
mhm,
And I would say something like, that happens. That happens. Your hands move faster than your heart, and just just pointing out almost, not using parts language because I think that's sort of more for grown-ups. And sometimes, I would say if I would do something that I wasn't proud of with them, I would say I disagree with myself. And that feels like a form of unblending, right? Like there was a part of me that did that.
mm,
And there's in my heart
mhm,
doesn't agree with what I just did, and I'm sorry. And so sort of modeling that, we have different parts of us that do different things. I
mhm.
feel like that's how I'm gonna answer your question, how we can do that with our kids. Yeah.
Love that modeling, and I love that piece of developmental awareness that their brains can't hold that complexity yet. I need to learn more. More.
Because we often are like, "Well, how do you think that made the other person feel?" Or like, we do this and like, that's not a capacity they have. They're in their own experience. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the last question I ask everyone, and people have different experiences with this question. It's kind of a weird question. It just came to me. And I'm asking everyone, like, if you could go back in time, right, based on
Mhm.
everything you understand about relationship, romantic, parenting, whatever, and give a piece of parenting advice, whispering it into the ear of a younger version of yourself, what would you say?
Yeah, it's funny, I was up in the middle of the night and that question because
Mm, yeah.
you emailed me that question before, and it was going through my head, and I came across, like, the answer that I wanted to give, and I don't remember what it was. I think probably what I would say is, like, I'm here for them to have a sense of feeling accompanied by something, by my heart energy,
Mm,
that they're not alone, that I'm
mm,
here.
mm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just that self to part connection
yeah, I'm here.
here with you. I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, thank you,
Yeah, this
yeah.
has been such a fun conversation, and I hope very educational for all of the parents out there. And more shall be revealed. We'll keep walking forward here. And thank you so much, Lisa. Oh, and how can folks can find you at the Newfield Institute where you're teaching there? And then
I
you
teach there,
also,
and then I have a website, yeah.
I saw that you have a free pamphlet on oppositional defiance, which I'm going to go
Yeah,
download.
just counter will, what we talked about, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right. And I'll make sure all of that's linked so everyone can find
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah. And I'm going to
Thanks so
try to
much for
wrangle
having
you
me.
into my world a little bit more. All my people.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
Alright, thanks.